A motorcade growled down the wrong street, sealing the fate of the entire world for the next 4 years. As a young Archduke and his young wife sat in their car, none the wiser, an assassin moved in to strike. With 2 loud pops ringing out into the air, the largest conflict the world had ever seen up to that point would begin, and 16.5 million people would lose their lives. Welcome to Fast Facts Friday. My name is Eleanor. Just a quick disclaimer for our younger audience before we dive in. This story may be disturbing to some, so viewer discretion is advised. Okay everyone, let's get into it. World War I, also known as the Great War, was the first conflict of its kind, shocking the world and quickly evolving the way wars are fought, even nowadays. For those who are unfamiliar with the beginning of World War I, particularly our younger audience members, it's crucial to understand how the mix of an arms race, conflicts in the Balkan region, and shifting military and political alliances stewed under the surface, leading to one cataclysmic event. Let's start with political and military alliances. For most of the 19th century, the major European powers maintained a tenuous balance of power known as the Concert of Europe. After 1848, this was challenged by Britain's withdrawal into so-called splendid isolation, the decline of the Ottoman Empire, new imperialism, and the rise of Prussia under Otto von Bismarck. Victory in the 1870-71 Franco-Prussian War allowed Bismarck to consolidate a German empire. France, of course, after this wanted to avenge this defeat. However, by the early 1890s, they switched gears to the expansion of the French colonial empire. In 1873, Bismarck negotiated the League of Three Emperors, including Austria-Hungary, Russia, and Germany. After the Russo-Turkish War, the League was disbanded due to Austrian concerns over the expansion of Russian influence in the Balkans. Germany and Austria-Hungary instead formed the Dual Alliance, becoming the Triple Alliance with the addition of Italy in 1882. This effectively isolated France, and Bismarck set up the Reinsurance Treaty, which was a secret agreement that Germany and Russia would remain neutral if either were attacked by France or Austria-Hungary. For Bismarck, the foundation of German foreign policy relied on peace with Russia, but in 1890 he was forced to retire by Wilhelm II. Wilhelm II was persuaded not to renew the Reinsurance Treaty by his new chancellor, Leo von Caprivi. This gave France an opening to agree to the Franco-Russian alliance in 1894, then followed by the 1904 Entente Cordiale with Britain. The Triple Entente was set by the 1907 Anglo-Russian Convention. While this wasn't a formal alliance, the countries at least were positive toward one another and pledged support. Next, we look at the arms race. German economic and industrial strength quickly expanded after 1871. Backed by Wilhelm II, Admiral Alfred von Tirpitz sought to expand the Imperial German Navy to rival the British Royal Navy. Bismarck was the opposite and never wanted to compete with the Royal Navy, since he believed Britain wouldn't interfere in Europe as long as its maritime supremacy remained secure. After his dismissal, German policy shifted, and thus was the beginning of an Anglo-German naval arms race. The launch of HMS Dreadnought in 1906 made every existing battleship obsolete, and set us off into the next era of shipbuilding. In 1911, Germany accepted they couldn't keep up with England's ships, and instead shifted their focus to the army. This decision was not only driven by England's fantastic shipbuilding, but also the alarmingly quick rate that Russia bounced back from the Russo-Japanese War and the subsequent 1905 Russian Revolution. Economic reforms led to a significant post-1908 expansion of railways and transportation infrastructure, particularly in its western border regions. Since Germany and Austria-Hungary relied on faster mobilization to compensate for their numerical inferiority compared to Russia, the threat posed by the closing of this gap was far more important than competing with the Royal Navy. Germany expanded its army to 170,000 troops in 1913, and so France extended compulsory military service from 2 to 3 years, sparking similar measures from the Balkan powers, Italy, and the Ottoman Empire and Austria-Hungary. Absolute figures are difficult to extrapolate due to differences in categorizing expenditure, since they often omit civilian infrastructure projects like railways, which did play huge roles in the military. But we do know that military spending by the 6 major European powers increased over 50% from 1908 to 1913. The years before 1914 were marked by a series of crises in the Balkans, as other powers sought to benefit from the Ottoman decline. While Pan-Slavic and Orthodox Russia considered itself the protector of Serbia and other Slav states, they preferred the strategically vital Bosporus Straits to be controlled by a weak Ottoman government, rather than an ambitious Slav power like Bulgaria. Russia had ambitions in northeastern Anatolia, while its clients had overlapping claims in the Balkans, and these competing interests divided Russian policymakers and added to regional instability. Meanwhile, the Austrians viewed the Balkans as essential for the continued existence of their empire and saw Serbian expansion as a direct threat. The 1908 to 1909 Bosnian crisis began when Austria annexed the former Ottoman territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which it had occupied since 1878. This was timed to coincide with the Bulgarian Declaration of Independence and indicates a significant escalation. It ended any cooperation with Austria-Hungary and Russia, and severely damaged the relationships between Italy and Serbia. Tensions increased after the 1911-12 Italo-Turkish War demonstrated Ottoman weakness and led to the formation of the Balkan League, an alliance of Serbia, Bulgaria, Montenegro, and Greece. The League quickly overran most of the Ottomans' territory in the Balkans during the 1912-1913 First Balkan War. The Serbian capture of ports on the Adriatic led to the partial mobilization of the Austrians, with the Russian government not mobilizing at this time. The Great Powers sought to reassert control through the 1913 Treaty of London, which had created an independent Albania while enlarging the territories of Bulgaria, Serbia, Montenegro, and Greece. However, disputes between the victors sparked the 33-day Second Balkan War, when Bulgaria attacked Serbia and Greece on June 16, 1913. Bulgaria was defeated, losing most of Macedonia to Serbia and Greece, and southern Dobruja to Romania. The result was that even countries that benefited from the Balkan Wars felt cheated of their, quote, rightful gains, while for Austria, it demonstrated the apparent indifference with which other powers viewed their concerns, including Germany. This complex mix of nationalism, resentment, and insecurity helps explain why the pre-1914 Balkans became known as the powder keg of Europe. And this powder keg was ready to explode. And all it would take is one spark. If you are enjoying this episode and want to hear more about ships, their careers, and the wrecks, check out our main show, Shipwreck Sunday, every Sunday night at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Okay, let's get into the catalyst that launched the world into World War I. On June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria, heir presumptive to Emperor Franz Joseph I of Austria, visited Sarajevo, the capital of the recently annexed Bosnia and Herzegovina. 6 men of the Young Bosnia movement took up positions along the Archduke's motorcade route to assassinate him. Supplied with arms by extremists within the Serbian Black Hand intelligence organization, they hoped his death would free Bosnia from Austrian rule. Little did they know the conflict it would truly start. One man threw a grenade at the Archduke's car and injured 2 of his aides, and the other assassins were also unsuccessful. An hour later, as Ferdinand was returning from visiting the injured officers in the hospital, his car took a wrong turn into a street where Gavrilo Princip was standing, one of the 6 assassins. He fired 2 pistol shots, fatally wounding Ferdinand and his wife Sophie. This event could have been easily forgotten, but the impact of the murder to the heir of the throne was significant, acting as an early form of terrorism. Austro-Hungarian authorities encouraged subsequent anti-Serb riots in Sarajevo. Violent actions against ethnic Serbs were also organized outside of Sarajevo and other cities in Austro-Hungarian-controlled Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, and Slovenia. Austro-Hungarian authorities in Bosnia and Herzegovina imprisoned approximately 5,500 prominent Serbs, 700 to 2,200 of whom died in prison. A further 460 Serbs were sentenced to death. A predominantly Bosniak special militia known as the Shipwreck was established and carried out the persecution of Serbs. This assassination initiated the July Crisis, a month of diplomatic maneuvering among Germany, Austria-Hungary, Russia, France, and Great Britain. Believing that the Serbian intelligence helped organize the assassination, Austrian officials wanted to use this opportunity to end Serbian interference in Bosnia and saw war as the best way of achieving this goal. However, the foreign ministry did not have solid proof of Serbian involvement. On July 23rd, Austria delivered an ultimatum to Serbia, listing 10 demands made intentionally unacceptable to provide an excuse for starting a war. Serbia ordered general mobilization on July 25th, but accepted all of the terms, except for those empowering Austrian representatives to suppress subversive elements inside Serbia, and take part in the investigation and trial of Serbians linked to the assassination. Claiming this amounted to rejection, so Austria called off diplomatic relations and ordered partial mobilization the next day. On July 28, 1914, they declared war on Serbia and began shelling Belgrade. This, my friends, marked the beginning of World War I, and it would all go downhill from here.